Rachel Berwick is probably my first mentor once I had like decided to be an artist. It's been 10 years now, which is kind of crazy, but
it's been 10 years.
It's been 10 years. 10 years ago in the desert in Abu Dhabi, making my way to RISD to do my MFA, and then kind of everything that's come out of that. And so much of practice and the things that I'm concerned with has come out of conversations with you. And I don't think we've spoken much about your practice, but like knowing the things that you are concerned with as well, really informed kind of like my interest in how I view our natural surroundings and how fragile they are. I'm really happy to have you on this call with us.
Well, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. But yes, Desert Day. It was an assignment that came directly out of my own work and the way that I approach material and making and my own care about the environment, but materials that come from an environment, like how they represent place and how materials attain meaning. Desert Day was, for me is just remarkable because I learned so much about the desert and what it means culturally, and what it means materially and what it is as an ecosystem, right? Endlessly fascinating to me. And so seeing you working there too was pretty remarkable.
And it's really, I guess, kind of serendipitous as well, because we actually just went to the desert this last week as part of the SEAF program. So, I've been going back, carrying your torch a little bit into the desert every year. And it's constantly, it's crazy, but every time we go to the desert, there's something different. I remember one year we went and it was extremely foggy. And so like we actually had this eerie experience where we were out in the desert and couldn't see more than maybe 5 meters ahead of you. Some years, like this past year, it was extremely green, actually. Like it had just rained. And so the desert was not very much a desert. Having that landscape as one that I was used to, and then coming to RISD and, the landscape being completely different. At the same time, I found it really funny that, that's when I started working with sand. It's when I had to actually go and buy it in bags instead of
yeah, there was some irony to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to speak for why you made the decisions you did, but honestly, I still remember when you interviewed for SEAF and the work that you showed. Tell me if I've got this right, but you were doing ink drawings about areas, places that struck you, that you remembered, right? And sort of as a means of accessing memory of places that had significance for you. And I still remember those drawings. And, and I think, for you, the way that memory as a subject, as a process, as a really kind of a way of making work, no matter how much your work has changed, there is this continuity to purpose, which just comes from your very, I think your sense of being and the way you approach the world. You found a way to look at sand, which supposedly is so familiar to you, but as if it was something completely new. I mean, you were researching it. I remember you were finding scientists who were researching sand worldwide and trying to find out about it from this completely different perspective.
I actually forgot that I was doing that, but no, yeah, it's bringing a lot back because I remember the moment when I found out the like differences in terms of like grains of sand and due to erosion and like sand from the desert is so different from sand right. That comes from say like riverbanks. I mean, Bahrain is a tiny island and it's has a lot of people and there's only so much space, and so when you have this population that is steadily increasing, you kind of have to like push out into the water, and so like land reclamation is a really big issue, and it's not one that they can actually even do internally. So they can't actually go into the desert and take that sand and put it in the water because it would just like blow away.
That's really embedded in the way in which, and I think I speak for all of the faculty in the glass department, the way we teach, which is what I like to say, this idea of like lobbing a question out there that you don't know the answer to, and asking questions not only of glass, but whatever material you're working with, that the process of then making is one of discovering. And that's a form of research, right? It's material research through process, the process of making. But then there's also material research where you are getting the information, right, from whatever sources, book research, we'll call it. And being able to pull the two together into a practice is not easy. I mean, it's a mouthful, but it is what we all really hold dear at RISD Glass. It's the way I love to teach. And it's certainly what I've done in my own practice. So while I don't explicitly talk about my own practice when I'm teaching, I am speaking or teaching from my own practice. And I think more so when you were a student than before. I mean, it took me a long time in my teaching to get to a point where I felt comfortable just bringing my practice into the teaching in such a kind of full-throated way. Of course, I thought about moments in your education when you came to RISD too, and the class that I team taught with Tara Newmandahl that was literally about how material attains meaning and tying history and culture and place, right, to materials in terms of where they're sourced and then how they change through use.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think back to the work that I made, which I did present as in this talk, where I was making the pearls.
I remember vividly, we're on the outside of the door of your studio. We're doing the crit. The whole class is there. Tara and I are standing there. And I think Maze might have run inside and we were staying outside. And then we opened the door and there you're sitting there, the Vermeer painting with your Carhartt jacket. And you're
yeah.
And I just couldn't stop laughing. I was like, this is just perfect. And the best part was you actually held character. You did not break out laughing. You sat there while we all exclaimed and talked about it. You were part of a cohort at RISD that was really a really lovely, lovely cohort. And I think that that's like, it's due to you and your cohort, but you were very much a part of that. And I just think that that was very special for everybody. And the same with SEAF, you know. So that's your humanity and your maturity, emotional maturity is really important because it's embedded in the way that you approach making. Like the people around you matter, and that's what your work comes from, and it's what your process supports. So I just had to call that out.
Well, I had really good examples. So
thanks for checking out this GEEX Shorts episode. This is just one of 10 chapters featuring the speaker's artwork, artistic practice, and direct conversations with the community. The full-length video, only publicly available for a limited time, can be found in the GEEX Talk subscriber archive, where you can also discover hours of content on even more contemporary glass artists and researchers. As a BIPOC and artist-led organization, GEEX redefines the culture of contemporary glass by canonizing artists and thinkers who have been historically marginalized in the field. If you'd like to support this effort, subscribe to GEEX and gain access to exclusive content. For more info, visit geeks.glass/support. Thanks to this episode's sponsors, listed on screen and in the video description below.